One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful. Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise. Most people do not really want freedom, because freedom involves responsibility. And most people are frightened of responsibility. Unexpressed emotions will never die. They are buried alive and will come forth later in uglier ways. We are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love. Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength. He that has eyes to see, and ears to hear may convince himself that no mortal can keep a secret. If his lips are silent, he chatters with his fingertips, betrayal oozes out of him at every pore. Where does a thought go when it's forgotten? A woman should soften, but not weaken a man. Religious doctrines are all illusions, they do not admit of proof, and no one can be compelled to consider them as true or to believe in them. It is impossible to escape the impression that people commonly use false standards of measurement, that they seek power, success and wealth for themselves, and admire them in others, and that they underestimate what is of true value in life. In so doing, the idea forces itself upon him that religion is comparable to a childhood neurosis, and he is optimistic enough to suppose that mankind will surmount this neurotic phase, just as so many children grow out of their similar neurosis. Everywhere I go I find a poet, has been there before me. In the depths of my heart I can't help being convinced that my dear fellow men, with a few exceptions, are worthless. Whoever loves becomes humble. Those who love have, so to speak, pawned a part of their narcissism. Immorality, no less than morality, has at all times found support in religion. The madman is a dreamer awake. No, our science is no illusion. But an illusion it would be to suppose that what science cannot give us we can get elsewhere. It is that we are never so defenseless against suffering as when we love, never so helplessly unhappy as when we have lost our loved object or its love. The virtuous man contents himself with dreaming that which the wicked man does in actual life. He does not believe, that does not live according to his belief. The behavior of a human being in sexual matters is often a prototype for the whole of his other modes of reaction in life. Where the questions of religion are concerned, people are guilty of every possible kind of insincerity and intellectual misdemeanor. America is a mistake, a giant mistake. Neurotics complain of their illness, but they make the most of it. And when it comes to taking it away from them, they will defend it like a lioness her young. Beauty has no obvious use, nor is there any clear cultural necessity for it. Yet civilization could not do without it. My love is something valuable to me, which I ought not to throw away without reflection. The intention that man should be happy is not in the plan of creation. Men are more moral than they think, and far more immoral than they can imagine. Love and work are the cornerstones of our humanness. The creative writer does the same as the child at play. He creates a world of fantasy, which he takes very seriously. In matters of sexuality, we are at present every one of us, ill or well, nothing but hypocrites. What progress we are making! In the Middle Ages, they would have burned me. Now they are content with burning my books. Loneliness and darkness have just robbed me of my valuables. The more the fruits of knowledge become accessible to men, the more widespread is the decline of religious belief. Where it is, there shall ego be. A man should not strive to eliminate his complexes, but to get into accord with them. They are legitimately what directs his conduct in the world. The interpretation of dreams is the royal road to a knowledge of the unconscious activities of the mind. Poets are masters of us ordinary men, in knowledge of the mind, because they drink at streams, which we have not yet made accessible to science. When a love relationship is at its height, there is no room left for any interest in the environment. A pair of lovers are sufficient to themselves. The ego is not master in its own house. Neurosis is the inability to tolerate ambiguity. How bold one gets when one is sure of being loved. A love that does not discriminate seems, to me, to forfeit a part of its own value, by doing an injustice to its object, and secondly, not all men are worthy of love. Men are strong so long as they represent a strong idea, they become powerless when they oppose it. Instinctive love toward an object demands a mastery, to obtain it, and if a person feels they can't control the object, or feel threatened by it, they act negatively toward it. Illusions commend themselves to us, because they save us pain, and allow us to enjoy pleasure instead. We must therefore accept it without complaint, when they sometimes collide with a bit of reality, against which they are dashed to pieces. Public self is a conditioned construct of the inner psychological self. It goes without saying, that a civilization which leaves so large a number of its participants unsatisfied and drives them into revolt, neither has nor deserves the prospect of a lasting existence. It is a predisposition of human nature, to consider an unpleasant idea untrue, and then it is easy to find arguments against it. Love in the form of longing, and deprivation lowers the self-regard. The dream is the liberation of the spirit, from the pressure of external nature, a detachment of the soul from the fetters of matter. Conservatism, however, is too often a welcome excuse for lazy minds, loath to adapt themselves to fast-changing conditions. I had thought about cocaine in a kind of daydream. You wanted to kill your father in order to be your father yourself. Now you are your father, but a dead father. No neurotic harbors thoughts of suicide, which are not murderous impulses against others redirected upon himself. The liberty of the individual is no gift of civilization. It was greatest before there was any civilization. Where questions of religion are concerned, people are guilty of every possible sort of dishonesty, and intellectual misdemeanor. We are so constituted, that we can gain intense pleasure only from the contrast, and only very little from the condition itself. America is the most grandiose experiment the world has seen, but, I am afraid, it is not going to be a success. The more perfect a person is on the outside, the more demons they have on the inside. As regards intellectual work, it remains a fact, indeed, that great decisions in the realm of thought, and momentous discoveries, and solutions of problems are only possible to an individual, working in solitude. Words and magic were in the beginning one and the same thing, and even today words retain much of their magical power.